Ladies and gentlemen, the Marvel plus Magic Secret Lair is almost here, and we have an official announcement of all the cards that are coming out. Today we're going to go over these cards. We're going to talk about maybe some ideas that I might have for different commander decks that we could make out of these things. And I do have a very special list for you for one of these commanders. With that being said, let's get into it. So the article starts out by listing the things that we already talked about. They unveiled this Secret Lair drop in New York Comic Con 2024, and now they have officially showed us what they're bringing. The first card is Earth's Mightiest Emblem. This is a print of Arcane Signet, but with the theme of Stark Tower. It's pretty awesome. I'm usually not a fan of Secret Lair, but I do love Marvel, and I do love the Avengers, especially Iron Man, so I'm super happy that Stark Tower is the Secret Lair choice. Now, in order to get this though, it is quite expensive. You need to spend up to $200 in order to actually get this in addition to other things you're buying. That's a bit pricey, and I know some players have been a little bit iffy on how expensive these cards actually are. I think from a consumer perspective, that kind of makes sense. And then as a business perspective, when you're working with something like Marvel wants to get that bag. And so while I don't necessarily agree with it, these prices kind of make sense. I'm not saying we should have to pay this much, but when you know that there's a company like Disney that can be a little bit greedy, sometimes these things happen. So now on to the actual commanders and their special cards that come with them. The first Secret Lair is Black Panther, Wakandan King. He's a green-white first strike 2/2 creature that says whenever Black Panther or another creature you control enters, put a 1/1 counter on target land you control. Then you can pay 3 to move all +1/+1 counters from a target land you control onto a target creature. If one or more +1/+1 counters are moved this way, you gain that much life and you get to draw a card. So for 3 mana per turn, basically you can buff up a creature that gets really big and you can draw a card. This is going to be great in a tokens go wide strategy. With such a cheap low to the ground commander, you could probably invest a lot in ramp and maybe X token creation spells. You'll put a ton of +1/+1 counters on things. Then because it doesn't say anything about sorcery speed, you can of course move all these 1/1 counters that you're getting onto a creature that maybe isn't blocked or maybe has a special effect like lifelink. From there, they also give you a Secure the Waste, a Primal Vigor, Heroic Intervention, Karn's Bastion, and a warrior token. Overall, I think this is actually pretty cool. If you know me, you know I love going wide, and so a strategy like this is actually pretty interesting. Do I think I'm that interested in it? No, probably not. I'll probably stick to Kutzel for now. He's the true cat warrior that I like. Now, you can get this for $39.99 US non-foil and $49.99 US rainbow foil. The next drop is Captain America First Avenger. This is a Jeskai 4/4 creature. Captain America says for 3 mana, you can unattach an equipment from Captain America. He deals damage equal to that equipment's mana value divided as you choose among 1, 2, or 3 targets. At the beginning of combat on your turn, you can attach up to 1 target equipment you control to Captain America. This is pretty cool. You can make kind of a Voltron-y sort of Jeskai deck that's also a little bit control-y because you can deal damage equal to mana value. You probably want to use this to tear down their board state, maybe either their commander or a couple of the value creatures that your opponents have. And then at the beginning of combat, you can reattach that equipment to him. It's pretty great. This deck also comes with a Sigarda's Aid, a Flawless Maneuver, In the Trenches, and Shield of War and Peace. Overall, this is a pretty interesting concept as a commander. I think I would definitely use this as more of a Jeskai control kind of list, where you're wanting to play on other people's turns, you're wanting to interact with the board all the time, snipe down their creatures as they enter, and then be able to swing in for a ton of damage with just your commander. Seems like a very difficult strategy to kind of pull off, but I feel like if you are able to pull it off, it could be really, really cool. You can also get this one non-foil $39.99 and rainbow foil $49.99. The next Secret Lair is Iron Man, Titan of Innovation. This is a 3 generic blue-red flying haste 4/4 creature. Iron Man says whenever Iron Man attacks, create a treasure token. Then you may sacrifice a non-creature artifact. If you do, search your library for an artifact with mana value equal to 1 plus the sacrifice artifact's mana value. Put it onto the battlefield, then shuffle. So it's basically a birthing pod for artifacts in Izzet colors. This seems to be a very, very complex deck where you're trying to find valuable artifacts that you can put onto the battlefield that can either combo off or help you kind of burn down the table. With the tutor in the command zone, I almost always think something around CDH level. In Izzet colors, you can be very controlling and very oppressive while also being able to find the kind of resources you need at any given time. Imagine something like a commander sphere, being able to break that into a 1 ring and always having a 1 ring consistently, or finding any other big artifacts that you might want. You can also maybe do this on a more low to the ground scale with maybe 1 cost artifacts and just use the treasure token that he gives you to get some of these. Basically, if you don't have a soul ring in the first couple turns, you can get a soul ring immediately when Iron Man comes out, which is pretty strong. This deck also comes with a Galvanic Blast, Commander's Plate, a Soul Ring, Inventor's Fair, and a treasure token. Same prices as always. Non-foil, $39.99. Rainbow foil, $49.99. The next secret layer drop is Wolverine. Best there is. Wolverine is 1 generic red and a green for a 2/2 creature, which states double all damage Wolverine will deal. At the beginning of each end step, if Wolverine dealt damage to another creature this turn, put a 1/1 counter on him. And for 1 generic and a green, you can regenerate Wolverine. This is pretty crazy. If you know anything about me, you know I immediately think combat tricks. Give this guy a monstrous rage and he's dealing 10 damage. Just like that. Buff him up with even more spells and you can deal lethal commander damage like it's nothing. Not only that, at the beginning of each end step, if he dealt damage to another creature, you put a +1/+1 counter on him. You know what that means? Fight spells. You can make a Gruul control combat tricks list with Wolverine. Now, that sounds like it's actually insane, but hear me out. It might be possible. Fight spell, he deals double damage, so your fight spells are doubly effective and you can punch above your weight class. You can also do deal damage equal to power with Wolverine, and that's going to double as well. Then of course with combat tricks, finding a way to give him trample and swinging for lethal damage with 1 fell swoop can be the reason that Wolverine gets actually busted. This one also comes with Berserk, Rite of Passage, Rhythm of the Wild, and Adamantium Bonding Tank, which is actually the Ozolith. And exactly the same prices as before, $39.99 non-foil and $49.99 rainbow foil. Overall, I think these secret layer drops are really cool. While yes, they are quite expensive, I think for the most part they are worth it. Most of the price is actually from the cards that are around it, as well as the fact that the commanders and their art are quite good looking. I think this is going to be a super cool secret layer set and I'm excited to see it in action. Now, I did forget to mention one secret layer drop and there's a reason why. Storm Force of Nature is 1 generic green, blue, red for a flying vigilance 3/4 creature. She's super badass and they made her in colors of green, blue, and red. Probably my favorite color combo out there. And not only that, but her ability says some absolutely insane stuff. Whenever Storm deals combat damage to a player, the next instant or sorcery spell you cast this turn has Storm. This is absolutely insane. In colors that already get a ton of mana and cast a ton of spells, adding Storm to this makes it so crazy. And today I have to share with you my definitive list that I have made and a list that I most likely will be playing. Now, the Mox field is down below, and you might see something a little bit weird. You might see that Xyrus is as the commander. This is just because I couldn't actually find a way to use Storm as the commander here, so Xyrus is just here for the colors. Don't pay any attention to him. So just like in my last video where I talked about kind of the broad structure of how you can build your decks, this is exactly how I went about building this. So I have a ton of draw, a ton of ramp, a ton of removal, and value for this kind of commander. A lot of it is kind of one-time draw and a lot of cantrip effects because this actually works really well when you add Storm to it. You get to draw multiple cards for very cheap mana, as well as rituals or treasure makers or any like red impulse draw now becomes amazing. Things like the Big Score, Manamorphose, Unexpected Windfall, Pirate's Pillage, Explore, and Growth Spiral all become absolutely broken when you add Storm to the card. Another card that's new from Assassin's Creed that becomes actually insane is Viewpoint Synchronization. It has free running and you get to search your library for 3 basic land cards, put 2 of those cards onto the battlefield tapped and the other into your hand. Now, if you get the Storm count even up to 3 with this card, you get 9 lands that are either on the battlefield or in your hand. 6 lands onto the battlefield, 3 into your hand. If you get the Storm count any higher, you're basically taking all the basic lands out of your deck, and next turn when you untap, it's gonna be mayhem for your opponents. Things like Stormkiln Artist, Archmage Emeritus, and any other Magecraft creature gets actually insane with this kind of deck. being able to give Storm to cards that do not require Storm is crazy. So the entire deck is basically just full of value, ways to make a ton of mana, ways to draw a bunch of cards, ways to ramp a lot, ways to even interact with your opponent. A card like Snap gets pretty crazy, as if it has Storm count, you can return a ton of creatures to your opponent's hand, and you can untap basically all of your lands. A thing like Amphibian Downpour is also crazy. You can essentially silence every single creature on the board because it has Storm, and effects like these are super hard to remove because you need enchantment removal or some way to maybe sacrifice your creature. I don't think I need to tell you any more about how giving cards Storm is broken. So instead, we're going to go on to how this deck wants to function and how this deck wants to try to present a win. So of course, you know me, I love getting free stuff. So we have a bunch of extra combats in the deck. We have things like Overpowering Attack, which also has the free running ability. We want to be able to give Storm double strike multiple times, so things like Teamer Battle Rage and Psychotic Fury are really good. This allows everything to get Storm, which is also busted. And then Seize the Day is actually an MVP in this deck. If you can get a Seize the Day, you can get multiple copies of Storm off in one turn, making 2 of your spells have Storm throughout an entire turn. It's pretty great. So we have some of those cards out there. We know that that's kind of the game plan, is to just play a lot of value. What is the way that we win this game? We have a couple different ways to win the game, and they're quite flexible themselves. The best way you're going to win this game is through Storm Splitter from Bloomburrow. You can either have Storm Splitter be your Storm spell for turn, then play an extra combat and storm off from there, or you can play Storm Splitter at the beginning of your turn, storm off, make it to wherever there's about 32 of them on the battlefield, then storm again, hopefully make a ton of mana, play an extra combat, and of course, swing with anywhere from 256 to 512 Storm Splitters. This guy gets really big really fast. Another way you might want to do it is by playing a Price of Progress. This is more of a late game spell, but of course, if you're able to trigger this 5 or 6 times in a single turn from Storm, it turns into a very, very powerful burn spell. Sticking with the burn theme, we also have Crackle with Power. This deck makes a ton of mana, and Crackle with Power usually is around 24 mana, and Crackle with Power is usually around 24 to 27 mana in order to kill the whole table. But in this case, you really only need 6 to maybe 9 mana, and then Storm count be 4 to 5. If you can have 4 to 5 Storm and play Crackle with Power, you're going to deal serious damage to every single player. The last way also is Time Warp. Now, Time Warp, of course, is pretty insane. If you're able to storm it off for maybe 5 or 6, you're going to take a ton of turns, and you're definitely going to be able to assemble a win from there. We only have a couple of actual, like, full-on win conditions, because in most cases, if you have one of these, you're going to win the game. You have plenty of protection in counter spells and removal, you have a ton of ramp, and you have a ton of draw for consistency. This deck is my absolute dream, and I cannot wait to try and play it. If you check out the Moxfield day-to-day, or you might want to make some changes, that's okay. Feel free to copy the list and make changes that you might think are better for you. This is the list that I'm kind of going with. I'll probably update it a couple times in the next couple days. But besides that, it just seems like a really fun strategy to try to figure out. It almost gets to the point where this might be CEDH viable. If you're able to tune the deck enough and it functions really well, maybe add a bit more counter spells for protection and a bit faster of mana sources, this deck could be pretty insane. But I won't delve into the CEDH side of things just yet. I kind of just want to stick to the higher power side of things. You do have one kind of infinite, I would say, in the deck, and that is Bear Umbra and Aggravated Assault. Essentially, if you have flying and you don't have anyone that can block you, Bear Umbra is going to untap all your lands. You'll then be able to pay for Aggravated Assault, which then untaps all your lands, and then you can pay for Aggravated Assault, untap your lands, do it over and over and over again. Besides that, there's not really any infinites in here. Most of it is just trying to play some broken stuff through Storm. So infinites aren't even really that necessary. I'm excited to try this out in person. I honestly think I'm just going to print out a list and play some test games in the next couple days and see how it goes. Be on the lookout on Tuesday for another full video. And also comment down below what you're excited for in this Marvel Secret Lair update. Which one of these commanders are you going to be trying?